Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to talk about a show you probably heard about because it was a bit controversial. It's Emily in Paris. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a Netflix show that came out not very long ago, and basically it's about a young girl in her early 20s, an American girl, and she just got a job in Paris. So you kind of follow along her journey as she moved to Paris and kind of starts confronting that new culture, having these little culture shocks. And yeah, so he's kind of opposing the American culture to the Parisian French culture. So it's pretty interesting. I think the show is pretty light. I mean, it's funny, it's nice to watch. It's not an amazing show, but it's pretty nice to watch. And it was a bit controversial, as I say, because it misrepresents the French culture or the Parisian culture. So if you don't know, I am French. I actually work in Paris, and I did live in the US for about 5 years. So I thought it would be interesting for me to talk about the show and what is true, what is not true, and what I thought about it. So let's get started. To go somewhere new. The first thing I want to talk about is the language barrier. So you will see Emily, she doesn't know how to speak French, and she will kind of encounter French people that are rude about it because they want her to speak French. I think that's pretty normal in a sense, because if you come to visit for a few weeks, a few months, of course we will not expect you to speak French. You will just be expected at least to say a few nice words like hello, thank you, please. And I think that's normal. I mean, every time you go to another country with another language, I think it's nice to at least know a few words, at least hello, so you can start a conversation by saying hello in the language of the person you're talking to. So of course, at least Emily, she needs to say bonjour, maybe merci and stuff like that. However, because she's going to go to Paris for at least a year and she's working in a French agency with just French people, of course it will be expected of her to speak French, because it's really hard to work with a bunch of people if you don't know how to speak their language. So I understand why in the show it kind of seems like they are mean to her because she doesn't know how to speak French. I don't think you should be mean to anyone like that and be rude about it. However, I think it's normal to expect someone to know at least a bit of the language if they want to come in an agency to work in. It's kind of hard if you don't know the language. So yes, Emily should learn more about speaking French because she works in a French agency. So next to the language thing is that after she's sure she doesn't know how to speak French, everyone is going to be able to speak English to her. And that's not true in reality. First off, a lot of people don't know how to speak English. In the show, I've seen it in the English version, so not in the French version. But in the English version, almost all the French people she encountered know how to speak English pretty well, except one girl. And I think that's not true. In a lot of companies, you will see a lot of people that actually don't know how to speak English. So don't expect everyone to be able to speak English to you, or maybe not speak English as well as they do in the show. So you can't expect people to know how to speak English, even though English is an important language and we learn it at school. A lot of people still don't really know how to speak English. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that weird in the show is that even when you see French people talking to one another, they will speak in English, which is absolutely not true, of course. English is not our first language. Even if we know how to speak English sometime, we will not be speaking English to one another. So when you will see in the show, every time they will speak English between them, that's not true. They will always speak French in reality, and maybe if they will speak directly to her, they will speak then English. And even now, I feel like a lot of people will actually try to even speak French to you to help you, and because you have to learn French if you want to work there. Another thing about the language barrier that I thought was so funny is Emily saying one time like, oh, I think things got lost in translation because people are getting mean to her, and she has a hard time translating her excitement and joy and happiness through her language, she feels like, because people are not answering like she would like to. And I think that's so true, because it's really hard sometimes when you speak another language. Even me, when I was in the US and I spoke English, so yeah, we both, like if I talk to people, we will speak English, but because it's not my first language, it was hard sometimes to really get my ideas across, because I don't have the same jokes, I don't know, you can't really be 100% yourself. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's just some ideas, some way you say some certain words or certain sentences that don't come across the same. And I think that's what you see in the show sometime, and you see Emily speaking in English and the other French people understanding her English but not really understanding her and what she's saying, because she's from another culture and we don't really act always the same. And so it's really hard, and I understand that sometimes you can't really get across your ideas from one language to another or from one culture to another. So number 2 is stereotypes about French people being super rude, super mean. I mean, especially Parisians, mostly like the Parisian stereotype. Even in France, like people not from Paris have kind of that stereotype about Parisian being rude and mean. So it's not just other cultures, but even in our culture, if you don't live in Paris, you feel like Parisians are like that. But so that stereotype, it kind of is based sometimes on a little bit of truth. You will find some French people being a little rude or a little mean because I think they are sometimes just stressed out. They see a lot of people, they kind of seem rude when they're actually just a little cold. There are a lot of things coming into that. I talked about it in other videos, but the thing is, it's still really over exaggerated, and people are not like that. But sometimes they can be a bit rude or cold, but not that mean. Like everyone in our job is like super mean at her at the beginning. They call her ringard in front of her face because she doesn't know what it means. And people would not do that, except like if people, there are mean people everywhere. But I mean, it's not a French Parisian thing to talk like that in front of someone's face. Or when she talks about, because she's from Chicago and she talks about deep dish pizza and someone say, oh yeah, it was so disgusting, I hated it. Just right after she says, we are so proud in Chicago of our deep dish pizza. So no, that's so mean and that's so rude. You don't say that to someone like that in that certain way. Of course, French people, we are known kind of telling more what we really think, and we'll tell you if we don't like something, but not in that attitude. Like we won't say, oh, it was disgusting, I hated it. Or maybe say, yeah, I have a hard time eating that. It's not really pizza, you know. I'm not used to Italian pizza. You know, you will turn it in a way, it's not that mean. It's just the truth, but it's not mean. But in the show, every time like a French people say something to her, it's like super mean and cold. And we don't really talk like that. So I don't think that's really the reality of it. So people are a lot more mean and rude in the show than in reality. Don't worry. Number 3. Smoking. So you will see in the show people are smoking a lot, and even in weird ways. Like one guy will smoke in the where he works, like in the building, and we cannot do that. Like you will not see people do that. It's not actually accepted. It's forbidden to do that. Before, in a while ago, you could actually smoke in restaurants, you know, in buildings, but now it's been forbidden for a while. So no, you're not supposed to see people smoking like randomly at your workspace. So that's not true. And also you will see sometimes the chef, she will say like, oh no, I don't need to eat, I will just have a cigarette. It's not something normal. We don't just skip meals because we smoke. I personally don't smoke, but I talk generally. People don't skip meals because they smoke. I mean, maybe one random person, but it's not like a French thing to like smoke instead of eating. So that's not true either. However, the stereotype about smoking a lot, that's true. I mean, you will see a lot of people smoking in Paris, but not just in building and not just inside of meals. So number 4, so this one I thought was so weird and kind of awkward, and I don't know really why they put that like that, but they kind of show like Parisian male being very, very touchy. Another thing is like one of her clients, to thank her, he buys her lingerie, underwear, and so that's not something normal at all either. Of course, that character is kind of specific and it's kind of goes in the show, and we'll see how his character development goes. However, you say it's normal here, we do that, and it's really not normal. The thing coming back to that, number 5, is how it's kind of talk about cheating. So in the show, it seems like cheating is something completely normal and accepted, and that people know about it and they don't care, just like something that is completely normal and accepted. It is not. It's really, really not. So yeah, there are a lot of people cheating in Emily in Paris. There is like her boss, which is having a marital affair with our client. and Emily kind of seeing her friend's boyfriend and all that stuff. So it's not something normal, it's not something accepted. So yeah, I don't know why they show it's more like that, all that things about male and females being super touchy, cheating on one another. It's not something normal. Number 6. So these ones are just two little things that is more like little cultural differences that I thought were funny and just something you should know, and that is true. The first one is when she goes to the apartment, she's like bringing her bags up the stairs and she's getting tired, and the guy say, okay, one more floor, and she's like, well, you say 5th floor, we are on the 5th floor. And he's like, no, we are actually on the 4th floor, because in France we don't, the first floor you come in at, so when you enter, we don't count it as the first floor, because it's like the zero basically is counted. We call it the rez-de-chaussée, so it's not how we count it. We basically, so the first floor, you call the first floor, we call it the rez-de-chaussée, it doesn't have a number, and then when you go up one, that's the first floor, and then second floor and third floor. So that's just a funny thing to know. It's just a little different how we count floors, I guess. We don't start from the first one at the beginning. It's more like you go up one, it's the first floor, and then the second floor, and all that stuff. So number 2 is dates. So kind of we inverse dates compared to you, or you inverse date compared to us. So for example, we will say for October 3rd, we will write 3/10, as you guys will write that first the month, so 10th, and then /3, which is so weird because yeah, I don't understand why you do it in that sense, because for me it's like always makes more sense, because I grew up like that, to just say, well, first is the 3rd, what month, what year. So yeah, if you come to France and you will see dates written with slash, be careful, we invert the month and the date compared to you. So I thought that was really funny, because she books a restaurant, but she doesn't know that it's inverse, so she thinks it's for the night she reserved it, but it's actually for a few months, because she doesn't know it's inverse. So it was really funny, because I know I had that a few times in the US where I wrote the date like I would in France, and people were like, no, that's wrong, and I'm like, okay. So the last thing I want to talk about is not the stereotype about the French people in the movie, in the show. It's actually about the American people, because there are a lot of stereotypes also about Emily being American, pretty extra, pretty loud, that she doesn't really try to understand the French culture. She kind of try to just show her American culture and things like that. When Emily is sitting at the table with all her colleagues and she's like presenting her ideas, and she's so excited, so she's a bit loud, and one of the French guys say, oh, why are you shouting? Because he's like, he's just talking too loud, it's so annoying. And I thought that was so funny, because it is a stereotype we have about Americans, and I think it's true. I lived in the US too, and yes, Americans are a bit more loud and a little bit more extra and shouting than French people are. So usually we'll be a little more calm and talk more, yeah, calmly and not as loud, I guess. However, I'm specific. I think I've always been pretty loud, but maybe in the US it kind of maybe even louder. But when I'm here in France, when I go to school and all those stuff, we always tell me that I speak too loud, that I'm shouting. But yeah, in generally, I think Americans speak a little louder than French people, so that's a stereotype we have, and it was funny to find it again in that show. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think there are a lot of more little stereotypes you can find in this show. If you found some and you want to know if it's true or not, let me know in the comments. Maybe I will do another video about that. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because it was everywhere on YouTube, everywhere on social media. And because I have a YouTube channel talking about my being French and my experience in the US, my experience living in France, I thought it would be interesting to talk about it on this channel. So yeah, just to remember, it's just a show, so it's really funny, and don't take it seriously, it's really funny. However, if you just were curious about little things, if it was true or not, I hope you thought this video was interesting. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye!